Tonight, folks, we're talking Good Boy. Stay tuned. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. I appreciate you tuning in for another brand new review. Tonight in movie reviews, we are talking Good Boy. Yes, I know I am a few days behind on this one here. There has been an onslaught of new films coming out here in the last few weeks, combined with a number of trips and work on top of that. So I'm only now getting around the chance to go and catch this one. But I'm excited, and I'm going to give you all the information that you're wanting about our dog in this one right off the jump when we get into it, okay? So you're not going to have to wait long for it at all. But before we get there, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button no matter where you are tuning in to catch this review. We got a lot of great horror content up on the channel, a lot of really fun stuff coming up here that I do not want y'all to miss, that I'll tell you about here at the end of this episode. But let's not waste any more time and jump right on into things here. If you have not seen the trailer for Good Boy before, a man moves into a new home that has supernatural forces lurking in the shadows. As his own health begins to deteriorate and dark entities start to threaten him, his brave dog will be the only one that can come to his rescue. And there it is, folks. That is Good Boy. Now, a number of you are likely interested in seeing this film simply from the fact that it is a horror film that's being touted. It is being marketed as being told from a dog's perspective. And this would not be the first horror film that has done that before. Most notably, Bad Moon, back in the late 90s, the werewolf tale was told from the most part from the dog's perspective, and that tale as well too. And then you can also maybe go back to The Hills of Eyes Part 2. Beast, one of the dogs that survived the ordeal, the events of the original film, returns for the second film and actually has his own flashbacks in that film as well too. So again, for horror fans, we have seen a number of projects that have very much taken the perspective of man's best friend, and it's always a great way to switch things up and to bring out something unique, because simply put, we don't see it enough for it to be a concept that we can grow tired of. It's not something that's not gonna perk some interest up, that's not gonna raise a few eyebrows whenever a project like this is announced. There's gonna be some curiosity for it, and it really helps when you have a super cute dog as your leading animal, whatever you want to call it. And Indy the dog here is absolutely gorgeous. This dog is incredible, and y'all, for the price of admission alone, you absolutely need to go see the work that Indy puts in. There's been some articles coming out about submitting Indy for acting nominations, like at the Oscars and the Golden Globe. And while I can't say that I really 100% support something like that, the flip of it, though, is that this is without a doubt the best animal acting, or at least acting by a dog, that I have seen in my 38 years on this planet. And that's saying a lot, because I grew up in the 90s to where that's all we had were movies about dogs doing everything. Like, if you could think of something that a human does, they're like, man, would that be fun to see if a dog could do that? It came out in the 90s, all right? I know, we got the Air Bud movies and all that, but there were so many of those films coming out, and a lot of these dogs have to be trained so well to hit marks, to hit certain cues, to make sure they can do all the zany stuff that we want to see on film without them having to use special effects a lot of the time. And doing a horror film seems like that might be just a little bit more intensive. That might be a little bit more labor-inducing there for the dogs themselves, because you have to think about it, especially in a film like this, to where the dog is our lead character, and that's the POV that we're seeing. The dog is going to be placed into a lot of unsafe situations that we would typically see, you know, people of all ages and kinds in horror films being placed in typically instead. But that doesn't change the fact that we're working with an animal here, and you have to remember that when you see this and see the performance that Indy puts in here. Whether it's being scared, there's a scene in here that completely caught me off guard with the writing of this, doing a phenomenal job by Indy being freaked out by seeing an apparition of another dog and seeing a spirit, a ghost, poltergeist, whatever it is, wandering around this house. And there's a part where Indy ends up peeing on the ground. And for a second, it's like, is this kind of being played for laughs? But then it's like, no, like, this is the same kind of thing that we would see if we were watching a human in this same situation. Like, oh my God, there's a ghost in my house, or maybe a couple of ghosts in my house here. I just pissed myself. And the dog is doing the same thing. And writing like that is perfection. Now, to get back around to that important question that you all want to know about whether or not Indy the dog ends up surviving things. And folks, I'm here to tell you, here just in a second, we'll get to that there. As I said, the plot here, though, is that Indy's owner, Todd, is dealing with a recent health crisis and decides to upend his life and move out to his grandfather's home as a better way of getting one with himself, more attuned to nature, and finding his own way of healing from this disease that has been afflicting him. And he's brought along Indy for the ride there. Todd's sister, Vera, does not approve of this move at all. She's very concerned that there's something seriously wrong with Todd and that he needs to get more testing done, needs to be getting back into the hospital. And also, this is thrown even further by the fact that we find out that Todd and Vera's grandfather died in the house that Todd has now moved into, and that there's a thought that by moving there, that kind of sped the situation up and might have even been the cause of why their grandfather died in the first place as well, too. So we're already dealing with a location here at this point that both of our main human characters are acknowledging could be haunted, and it's just a place of negative energy, nothing good about it at all. And as Todd kind of gets himself more settled in to his grandfather's place, Indy is starting to notice all of this evil presence that surrounds the two of them there, and how it continues to grow and fester and mature the more time that they're spending here at this home. What kind of caught me off guard here was how similar it felt to Steven Soderbergh's Presence earlier this year. That was the horror film that was told completely from the ghost perspective. And, we don't really ever see the ghost until the very end of the film itself. But when the ghost is interacting with the various characters in the environment, we get to see that played out on screen. And in the way that this film, Good Boy, is shot, there's a lot of similarity to it. Like here and there, we get a few shots that are supposed to be coming from Indy's eyes, but a lot of it is told just right at eye level, which is, I think, a great filming choice, because it really forces us to see Indy as our protagonist. And we have to start taking in a lot of Indy's emotions and what Indy is thinking throughout these various scenes. And to be quite honest, Indy did such a fantastic job acting here in this that it almost feels, in a way, like we're watching a horror film that's about a toddler that's there to help their dad out, basically. You can kind of almost hear and start picturing the thoughts that Indy is putting out here on screen as all these terrible things are happening around Todd's grandfather's house. And that just goes to show you how well the writing and the directing was done on this. The fact that these scenes can be shot and set up in a way that we really don't have any issues interpreting what Indy is likely thinking here in this exact scene. I think that is phenomenal, and honestly, that does make this one of the bigger horror successes of the year. The fact that so much of this is told without dialogue, obviously from our lead character, and we're filling in the blanks from everything we're seeing and hearing here on screen, that the film is able to successfully do that. Just a fantastic job, and again, one of the biggest standouts from a horror film this year. Now, does Indy the dog die? Well, first, let's talk a bit here. And I'm kidding. Indy the dog does not die in this film, y'all, okay? You've likely already seen that online at this point here. Indy is put into a lot of peril in this film for sure. And for dog lovers like myself, at certain times, this is going to be a bit of a hard watch to see some of the danger that Indy is portrayed in on screen. But one of the great things here about Good Boy is that the post-credit scene or the mid-credit scene shows a lot of how they made the film and shows that Indy was not really in any kind of danger with all the stuff that they were shooting throughout this here. So no matter all the cries and the yelps and what seems like to be a very dangerous situation here, just know that Indy the dog was never in any actual danger going out and having this film. Now, to me, this movie very much came off as like showing us the way that somebody other than a human is dealing with impending death and that they're dealing with grief. And I know that's going to give away a little bit more of the plot here and what y'all can likely expect to happen here in this film. Now, I interpreted Good Boy as showing us a different way to deal with impending death from the perspective of somebody who isn't human. You know, we talk a lot about these bonds that we make with the pets that we have in our lives, and can they truly understand us? Do they know what we're thinking? Are they empathetic? All these various things here. And we see that Indy understands a lot more than a lot of other pets do here, by understanding that, you know, Todd has some issues, some health issues right now, and in a number of scenes very much trying to be as much of an assistant to them as he can possibly be. But again, it's one of these things to where we as the audience kind of realize that Todd is likely not long for this world. And as much as Indy loves him and Indy wants to take care of him, Indy also needs to begin to understand and accept that Todd isn't going to be around you that much longer. And you have to start coming to terms with that and coming to terms with your life without, you know, this one person who has been your life for so long at this point. And it's an emotionally heart-wrenching story to say the very least, y'all. You know, like ignoring even all the scary parts in it, this is going to be a film that is very, very much going to pull at your heart watching throughout it as you see the relationship begin to deteriorate between Indy and Todd throughout it. Just as Todd's continually trying to figure out what's going on with himself, their strain just gets worse and worse and worse. And it's gonna hurt a lot of you going through and watching this one for sure. That's how powerful this film truly, truly is. And I think that on the downside of that is because the film does focus so much time on this relationship. And like I said, it's telling this story about impending loss and how we come to terms with that. Again, from the perspective of something not human here. We don't really get to make much sense of the supernatural happenings that are going on at Todd's home at this point. You know, it's not necessarily that we need a motive. It's not that we need all the answers laid out in front of us or anything, but we're just not given enough to really truly get behind like what is the cause of this evil that's inhabiting Todd's life and apparently Todd's grandfather's life, and why is Indy able to see it but Todd can't see it. Like, we're not given any kind of answers to these questions here. And so again, it's not that we need it all laid out in front of us, but it did feel very, very obvious is not the right word. It's hard to ignore, honestly, because of the fact that everything with the emotional aspect of the film is so good. So that stopped it from kind of reaching the heights that I really, really wanted it to be. But overall, though, there is some really good scary stuff in this one as well, too. You know, it is a different feeling when you're watching a pet being placed into danger. And I think that is an easy way to get to most of us and feeling that vulnerability that we can't do anything at all. Todd in this is helpless a lot of times when Indy is in danger. And I think that is great framing here for so much of this, of the bad stuff that happens here in this film, because we feel exactly like Todd would have to feel if he was seeing any of this as Indy is being put through the ringer. So the scares in this one are very effective. I will say that a lot of the really good ones are very much saved for that third act. You know, the film doesn't overdo it or overplay its hand by showing us too much of the ghost and too much of what this ghost is doing here throughout the first half of this film. Like, there is going to be a lot of interaction, but a lot of the really good and scary stuff is definitely left to that third act, and that's okay because the build up towards a lot of what we're seeing works out really, really well here. Overall, I had a lot of fun here with Good Boy. I don't necessarily think that it's the home run that a lot of folks on social media were talking about when they got a chance to catch it earlier this year and caught it last week once it opened up. But at the same time, though, I think it does offer us a truly unique horror film for 2025. And if you were a big fan of Presence at the beginning of this year, I think this is a really, really good companion piece to go along with this one as well, too. Not to mention, you have one adorable dog here in Indy, and Indy doesn't die in this one either, folks. So a lot to like here with Good Boy, and that has me ultimately giving it a 3.5 out of 5. I think that this is a perfectly fine film that once it hits streaming for a lot of you, you're going to check it out. You are going to feel terrible working your way through it and watching the hell that Indy has to go through. But ultimately, you'll probably shed a few tears and walk out of it thinking this was a really great experience, folks. But I'm curious what you thought about it. Let me know here in the comment section. Always curious to talk a little bit more here about the films that we're reviewing on the show. And of course, get subscribed to my link tree, as that's the best way to stay on top of all the horror content I have coming out for all of you. You can do that by going to linktr.ee/T-Scary-Movie. If you get subscribed, that's going to give you access to the YouTube page, to the video versions of the show, your favorite podcasting platforms, the audio-only versions of the show, my Letterboxd page for written reviews and movie rankings through the year, my TikTok page for short horror content including movie news, movie premieres, and movie reviews, my Twitch page for horror gaming including Phasmophobia, and my Fangoria shop page. You can enjoy a 20% discount off anything in the Fangoria shop. Take advantage of that, folks. Hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, no matter where you are tuning in here to catch this new review. A lot of good stuff coming up, including reviews for The Black Phone 2, Street Trash, the original Toxic Avenger, Queens of the Dead. We got a lot of stuff coming up for y'all here really soon that I do not want y'all to miss out on at all. Folks, I appreciate y'all tuning in. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Got more great stuff coming for you soon. But that's it for me here tonight, y'all. My name is T. We'll be talking scary movies. Stay scared.